The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Millie Court from Essex. Do you know what I'm going to talk about, Kev? Millie Court? Does that name ring a bell?
Did I used to go to school with her?
No, but somebody from your neck of the woods too, from Merthyr Tydfil, Liam Reardon. Does that ring a bell? Do you know him?
Probably.
He has your physique. I'm wondering if you work out together. They are the winners of this year's Love Island, Kev.
Hey.
But somebody from Merthyr Tydfil, yeah, on the map.
Do you watch that?
No. They share, I did read about it though, they share £50,000 of prize money for showing the world their innermost moments of intimacy. This morning, our Thomas said, "What's Love Island?"
Yeah. Good for him.
Said, have you not seen it on Tickety Top?
It is the single most annoying, horrible program. If they go on about like,
have you watched it then, Kev?
You know, the stresses of everyday life and you know, being the pressures of body perfect and the pressures of, you know, of just like the insecurities of everyday life, and then they go and show trash like that on the television, you know, for the sake of numbers. Makes me vomit.
Don't sit on the fence, Kev, though, will you?
Well, it's just awful, isn't it? You've got proper people with proper illnesses and stuff like that because of programs like that.
It's called light entertainment, Kev.
No, it's not.
Have you watched it then?
No, I've never. I mean, I've seen trailers for it and everything, but you know, I tell you what.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch. I am sick to the back teeth of Modern Family now. I once said it was very good, and it is good if you watch it once, but the kids have it on repeatedly, absolutely repeatedly, and I still chuckle at it at points, but oh my word, it's just on constantly. I'm now educating them in the realms of Miranda. Miranda is far more funny, and we're having Miranda on a lot more often when we're eating our dinner now.
I can just imagine it. Kids, come sit down with Dad and watch chess for an hour and a half.
The FujiCast.
Because that's
That'd be fine.
Yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you? Doesn't Miranda? Isn't she a bit sweary? Or have I got that wrong? I'm thinking of Sarah Millican.
Oh, no, Sarah Millican is very sweary.
Yeah, she's very funny.
Miranda is a little bit rude. Yeah, not so much sweary, but a little bit kind of rude.
Yeah, I thought for a minute you were sitting down in front of Sarah Millican for a little bit of adult entertainment each evening with their fish and chips. You and your questions today from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the FujiCast famous Facebook group, I'll get them all out, that you're welcome to become a part of. Send your mails in through click at fujicast.co.uk. There's Kev's Book of the Week this week. What have we got, Kev? What tome have you brought in this week?
We have got Águas de Ouro.
Say that again in English.
Águas de Ouro. Do you know where that is?
Água del Ouro. That's Brazil?
Yes. Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, and I think you're going to mention the 60-year-old woman that sort of electrified her career later on in life and has made these amazing pictures that are in this book about beach life in Brazil.
Sandra Adorno.
That's the one. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. Well, that's the book of the week. This week we're going to hear from Palle Schultz, who is a genius with a Fujifilm camera. We're doing our summer revisits of friends of the show. Next week we start with a new season of interviews. I think we start with a new season of interviews next week, or is it the week after, Kev? Where are we? Are we almost at the end of August?
Yeah. Next week will be the 6th of September.
Oh, my word. Oh, God, you'll be right in the midst of your 4 in a row.
I will indeed.
Your four weddings in a row. Where are you travelling for these, by the way? Are they local?
I'm not sure. 2 of them, but one of them is in central London, and one of them is in Devon. I think the other one is in Buckinghamshire area, and I think the first one is in Gloucestershire. I don't know. I'm trying not to think about it too much.
I'm sensing your enthusiasm, Kev. I know it's going to be hard because you've come back from holiday. How did the wedding go, by the way?
Oh, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It was a really, really beautiful day. Yeah, really good.
And then
everybody from the village came out, and it was just really nice, really, really nice.
Anna was telling me who photographed the wedding, and you're going to talk to Anna, I think, aren't you, on the show?
Yeah, hopefully at some point. She's ridiculously busy at the moment as well, so we will hopefully get her on.
Yeah. She said that you drank the village of Malmesbury dry, you and your friends. That you had to send out for reinforcement. In fact, the army had to bring the booze in. When you hear the British Army have been called in, you know there's a problem.
We got through quite a lot of alcohol. But, it was the first knees up the town's had in a long time. So, we invited all of our friends. They all came. Apart from the ones that were on holiday and stuff. So it was great. It was really, 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 really good day. I really enjoyed it.
Is it true that the Chinook had to airlift in a crate of Becks?
Me and 5 of the boys went down the co-op and we'd bought so much stuff, but the beer went very quickly because it was quite a warm day. So we had to go down, we traipsed down to the co-op and basically took whatever they had left on the shelves and carried them up the hill back to the hall that we were having the wedding in. It was quite a comical moment. More expense though.
Did you manage to clear that lot as well?
There was nothing left. Literally nothing left. It was great timing though, because we had to finish at 12
for a Mullins gig. Finish at 12.
12 what? In the hall. We had to turn the music off. We then went back to the back garden, but we all basically ran out at about that time, which was great. Not the wine. There was loads of wine left over, but the beer went.
It was a good night though, by the sound of it.
Oh, it was excellent, really cool, and Anna was amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah, it was just fun. It was just a really lovely family celebration day, and all our friends and stuff, and it just kind of felt like God. Yeah, we've all missed doing things like this, and I know the world's pretty much back to normal. Well, in this part of the world anyway. So yeah, it was just like a real fillip of goodness for us.
A fillip of goodness?
Yeah, a fillip.
There will be some people thinking, well, I don't quite understand this. Kev married? Because of course we've always talked about you being married to the beautiful Gemma, but nobody knew about the third marriage that you were having, to Millie Court from Essex. Only to lose Millie to Merthyr Tydfil's Liam Reardon.
Oh my word, some things money couldn't buy.
Right, should we go for questions? Who wants to go first? Can I go first?
Yeah,
Sorry.
you go first.
That was a question, but it wasn't really a question. It was only because we received. Where is it? I haven't spent a little bit of time this morning loading this up so that we could. Here it is. Right, from Richard. I think we always get the name wrong because he's now given us phonetic instruction on how to get the name, because we've said Wiederkind and all sorts of stuff, trying to turn him into some sort of character off of a movie. It's Wederkind,
right?
Kindred. No, as in kindred. Wederkind. Oh,
you're messing this up. You're not doing this a very good.
No wonder his email address, it just says very red. It's much easier. But he did write, he said, thanks for answering my question again. Hope that doesn't mean I have to buy you 2 cups of coffee this month. An overlong YouTube conversation between Matt Brandon and Zach Arias. Are you aware of Matt Brandon's channel at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Zach, well, they were talking, actually it's a video that was out quite a while ago. They get round to, at the end of the show, they're talking about cameras being tools and the fact that you look after them. And Matt makes a very good point, actually, that he says, workmen look after their tools, but they don't treat them with kid gloves. They are at the end of the day there to do a job. And then they get onto the discussion of Mullins.
These cameras are sexy, they're beautiful, but they're still a tool, and so they're gonna get in the dirt with me. They're gonna bounce around in a bag, get knocked in another camera and some lenses and things, and it's one last.
Like it when my cameras get a little brassing and dinged up, and
I wish they had brass on these. That would be
Kevin
really
Mullins?
Cool. Yeah,
man, you should see some of his cameras. Like, there's no paint left on the body. Like, I don't know what the hell he does to his cameras, but he pulls them out, and I'm like, that's been through a war zone. Like, nope, just weddings, which similar.
So they mentioned in the conversation, I don't know where Zach was. He sounds like he was in a cave. but Zach has noted you do not look after your kit, Mullins.
He did. I handed him my X70 once, and he was like, "What the happened to this?"
Dear. Right, go on then. Your question from the Facebook group.
Okay, so from the Facebook group, I will, as tradition now, tradition I invented, complies. Start from the latest one, which was 3 days ago. So come on, folks, 3 days. Not good enough. Come on, keep up.
School teacher Mullins.
Yeah, Mark Hall says, do you think there will eventually be an update that will allow us to use the clarity setting without a delay in the future? I have a Ricoh GR3, and when using clarity, there is no delay. I would have to assume the processing power in an X Pro 3 is stronger than this pocketable little street shooter. Yeah. That's a really good question because, as anybody knows that has one of the more recent Fujifilm cameras, the clarity setting is in there now, which is it's a really nice feature. Actually, it gives that real bit of punch, if you'd like that look to your JPEGs. But when you have it switched on, it does slow everything down. It sometimes can take like a full second, maybe even more if you're doing burst shooting. Actually, I don't think you can have clarity in burst mode, but anyway, it slows everything right down when it's creating these JPEGs. Yeah. So yeah, my answer is I have a feeling that is something they probably could address in firmware. I also think it's probably something that's quite difficult for them to do because I think they would have done it already. So yeah, I would also like to see that happen. Whether it will or not, I don't know, but it feels like that's a firmware type thing. So fingers crossed for all of us on that. Yeah,
there's a lot of processing going on when you add any sort of contrasty setting or clarity to an image. So it's not surprising actually, although Ricoh obviously have managed to find a solution for it by the sound of it.
Yeah, they have by the sounds of it. I mean, obviously I haven't used that camera, but the thing is, if you even in Lightroom, if you just suddenly crank the clarity slider right the way to the right just to test it, it is one of the slower of the features. It is, it's one of the ones that takes time or takes, perceivably a little bit longer than just slide in the shadows, for example. So there is obviously something going on, but who knows what. And if other camera manufacturers have done it, then hopefully Fujifilm can copy their code.
Well, this is probably a good time to say that might be a question you can ask Andreas, because I'm recording the Ask Andreas one, and we're going to have that on as soon as it's recorded. It could even be next week. So that might be a good question. We should announce that the Ask Andreas question thread is open in Facebook now. You need to get those in quickly. We can't, of course, as always, do them all, because otherwise, going by previous threads, we'd be here forever. But we can certainly choose the pertinent ones, can't we, Kev?
Yeah, of course. And for those who don't know who Andreas is, he is the he's been title, promoted. Yeah. So I'm not sure. He used to be the marketing manager, but for the X series and GFX, and now I think he's marketing manager for basically everything, including cine lenses and Instax and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's the man. He's the go-to man to know about the ins and outs of Fujifilm. Whether he's very good technically as well, but obviously he'll be able to answer questions specifically about products, all kinds of stuff like that. So very nice. So
get your questions in. Here's one from the Howling Bassets. Oh, hello both. Question: is there part of the wedding day, from Howling, a tradition which you wish would just fade away into distant memory, like a chocolate fountain? He's his signing of the register shot. Can't stand it. Pointless, archaic, quite obviously annoying, he says. I don't know. I mean, it's part of the legal contract, isn't it, between a couple? So actually, it's a bit like signing of some sort of agreement between governments, isn't it?
Well, it's actually changed now, though.
I know, it's not the register anymore. I know, it's not the register.
It's not. It's just a piece of paper now. It's changed in the UK because it's all digital.
Yeah, so but his question came in. Yeah, his question came in on the 19th, Kev. So I can only assume he hasn't noticed that old register has changed into a bit of paper now.
Yeah, and so that whole. I mean, when Gemma and I did our thing on 2 weeks ago, it would have been now. We signed the church register, which is not the government one, because we'd already done that, and that's more for the the church records, and that's it really. There was nothing else, no other reason for that piece of paper.
Mind you, yours wasn't a fresh wedding, was it?
No, exactly. But married, the paper when we'd done the legal stuff, then that's obviously a legal. That's the government document. They need that, but that's all changed. So now, when you go to a church, even if it's a church wedding, or you go to a registry wedding, they no longer have that big book that has previous wedding couples' names and all that kind of stuff in there. It's just a piece of paper which they then they then type into a word processor somewhere, and up it goes.
Do you know what they call that piece of paper, Kev?
What?
It's called the schedule. How romantic.
How romantic.
You sign the schedule, please.
Could they have made it any less romantic, the schedule?
Do you remember, though, the days where... Oh, of course you do. Where the register comes out. Now, in London... now, this, of course, will change wherever you are in the world, but Kev's describing the UK way of signing this marriage register. In London, they were always reasonably relaxed about the signing moment, and you could photograph it. But in other parts of the country, Herefordshire being one, they would guard this thing like a kid who was guarding, who doesn't want you to see his work and you're trying to copy him from the table next door. Don't look at me, don't copy. They wouldn't let you photograph it, go anywhere near it, would they? They were so protective about it. It's a legal document. Well, yeah, it is. But equally, you can see this legal document if you just walk in and ask to see it, including all the names that are opposite it too.
It's a very weird...
It became a thing, really.
Weird thing, yeah.
And they've already started, because I've done quite a few weddings now since we sort of came out of the big lockdown. And it started again. Oh, you can't photograph that while it's going on. Well, why not? Because it's a legal document. Yeah, but it is, but it's their legal document. So there's nobody else on the other side. I mean, it used to be you can't photograph it because there's people on the other side from the previous wedding.
I always say to them, are you okay if I photograph the signing of the register? If they say no, I just say okay. And then I just don't. Yeah. I never have a conversation with them about it, because it's the kind of dullest part of the day, maybe, or the ceremony, at least, I think. Unless you've got a really beautiful backdrop and all the people are standing in an amazing composition, or somebody's, like mum and dad have a great big snog behind them as they sign in the register.
It's not Love Island, Kev.
Pretty dull, isn't it, though?
Well,
so it doesn't bother me if they say no.
I don't. Sometimes that's the moment where they look at each other and they've got this, we've only gone and done it thing. And I always think it's nice to get that moment. But if you've got somebody saying thou shalt not photograph this, then it's a bit harder to be. And then you have to do the setup. And I much prefer not to do the setup. So to ask, that question, can I photograph that natural moment? It's much easier. Prevents that sort of grip and grin.
Well, with the setup, I always say to them, when the paperwork goes back to the other registrar to do the sign, and then they're just sat kind of waiting, twiddling their thumbs a little bit. I say to them, look, we're not allowed to. I wasn't allowed to take pictures, as you know, of you signing it. Do you want one of those really boring, fake, stupid setup pictures? They all say no.
No, but then. That's a bit negative, don't you think? Do you want one of these?
Some of them say yes, and in which case I'll do it. But but most of them say nah, don't worry about it.
So you don't photograph the register at all because you've told them it's boring.
Yeah, basically, in most cases. But in some cases they say they want it, and that's fine, we'll do it. But yeah, it's when the registrar start saying, do you want us to turn them around so everybody's behind them, and then you can see them while they're fake signing the register, and everybody's sat behind them wondering why they're looking at their backs. And I just say, nah, don't worry, don't worry, unless they really want it. Sometimes I'll even pass the buck to the registrar and say, well, you can ask them if you want. And then by that time I'm usually up the end of the aisle waiting for them to walk down the procession.
You're usually in the pub. I'll have one of those, please, barman. I'm not doing that. But going back to Howling's question, is there a part of the we sort of got stuck on the register there, really, but is there a part of the tradition you wish would just fade away into a distant memory, like a chocolate fountain? I mean, I don't think people have chocolate fountains anymore, and if they do, they're so 80s.
They always have them on Don't Tell the Bride. Did you ever watch that programme where the groom gets 25 grand and he's got to plan the entire wedding in 2 weeks?
Oh, I have watched a few of those. They are quite funny.
They are quite funny. And of course, they're never going to show the boring couples, but they are. There's always, you always get like the bloke he always starts out being a complete and utter loser, failure, laden in debt, like they live in a cardboard box type thing.
Oh, what editions have you watched?
they show him, spending 20 quid on the dress and going on a stag weekend to Magaluf or something with his mates, and the bride spends the entire program saying how much she hates him now and it's terrible, and look at the invites he's presented and all that kind of stuff, and then usually somewhere in the program as well, one of the key members of the bride's family says she can't make it, she won't be able to come, so there's tears, and then actually at the wedding itself, which is always really nice, the key member of the family appears from behind a tree and there's screams, howls of excitement, and then she she loves him forever and ever until they get divorced a couple of years later. But it is very, very funny. I like that program. It's very, very funny.
It is.
But they always have chocolate fountains.
They do, yeah. That's true. That's normally the gent ordering something like that because he believes he's seen it somewhere and needs one. But it's only
they also never ever show them booking or researching a photographer. But there's always a photographer there.
I know.
So I'm guessing that somewhere down the line there's a research person on that team is ringing up loads of photographers saying, right, do you want to be on this program? You have to do it for free, but you can be on it.
I'd do it just for the fun. I'd love to see one of those shows being done. Go on then. What would you get rid of, Kev? What tradition would you? I suppose, and not in terms of tradition, but a part of the day which I find sometimes a little bit difficult in terms of things to photograph is that long sort of lull between the end of the wedding breakfast and speeches, or the banquet as it's called in other countries, and the start of the entertainment, where people go and sit and drink cups of tea.
That's not a tradition though, is it? It's not tradition. That's just the organising of the day, really.
Feels like it. Is chair covers a tradition? That's not really. I wish that would go away.
I actually, you know what? I quite like the Britishness of British weddings. I quite like that, the structure of them. Things like cake cutting and all that kind of stuff. They rarely, sometimes they offer, good photographic opportunities, but rarely in my books anyway. But actually, I think they're just part of the fabric of a wedding. There isn't anything specifically that every single wedding, like a tradition, if you like, that makes me think, oh, here we go again. I quite like it. I like the traditions, I think. I also like when at the end of every ceremony, when the registrar explains why, the groom is on the left, and then she makes the funny joke about giving the certificate to the most important person, and she gives it to the bride, and then the bride hasn't got any pockets, and the bride has to give it to her mum, and all of that stuff. That always makes me chuckle every time. It's like watching repeats of a TV show.
There's an unofficial tradition as well, Kev, I wish they'd get rid of, which is best men with AV shows. But that's more of a grumble than a tradition, I suppose. Don't do the AV. Oh, no.
When you see the projector come out.
Oh, no.
Although
long haul.
I have seen some very good ones, but you're right. You're in for you need to go and charge your batteries a couple of hours beforehand when you see a projector in the dining room.
I watch Granny at that moment because you just know there's going to be all levels of wrongness coming out in one of those.
Well,
right.
I did a speech on our thing, it was
you called it thing.
35 seconds long.
You called it thing, didn't you? You didn't call it wedding.
No, because there was lots of things happening.
Yeah,
I didn't want to call it a wedding because. Although it was a wedding, I mean, we were married in the eyes of the church and all that kind of stuff, renewed the vows, all that stuff. But there was all, there was baptism, first Holy Communion, confirmation. It was all kinds of stuff going on. So I just pared it down and called it the thing.
Anna said that you said 30. Sorry, I was talking across you. Then I'll get letters about that. 35-second speech. But she said you said something really, really wonderful. To Gemma, you made her cry.
Yeah, and actually I can't remember because I never honestly can't. I had no intention of doing a speech, none whatsoever. And so I had not even thought about it. And then Aggie, bless her friend's daughter, she made the most wonderful cake. I mean, like absolutely beautiful. Yeah. So Gemma decided we would cut the cake, mostly because we want to say thanks to her, so which we did, and then everybody kind of just stared at us, like it was like we were in a goldfish bowl.
Oh, right.
And I thought, right, I better say a few words. So my intention was just really to say thank you to Aggie and then everybody else who kind of thanked us, who helped us, and then I said a couple of other bits and pieces. But I honestly, it was literally seconds, and I don't really remember much about what it was.
Well, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let Anna, when you talk to Anna about your wedding day, because that's how I heard. I'm sure she'll recount the story. I thought it was really sweet, actually, Kev. Anyway, should we move on because it's becoming a wedding special?
Yes.
Better do a question that's non-wedding related.
No, we had I think it was Joey. Was it Joey Campagna who said that he'd posted a question on the Patreon page and we hadn't answered it? Was it him?
Might have been, yeah.
So I've just gone to the Patreon in the inbox, and we have answered. As far as I can tell, we have answered. So as far as the Patreon stuff goes, if you are a patron of the show, thank you very much. And if you ping a message through there, you get what's known as bumped to the front, or Neil penned it as bumped to the front. Yeah. And the only one I can see from Joey was from December the 2nd, 2020. So we definitely dropped the ball on that one.
Oh, dear. How?
Yeah.
Do you want to redo it then? Have you got it there?
Yeah, there's two.
Go on then.
Okay, so the question, there's two from Joey. One of them was from December 2020, which was about my presets. So it's not really a question, more of a comment, which is nice. And then there's a second one. Again, I think we did answer this because it rings a bell as I'm reading it. So, Joey, maybe you either missed it or we never did it. I don't know. But anyway, he says, hello, guys, love the show, blah, 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 blah. Just wondering what you think of the big news about Toshi Lida, which is the Fujifilm X big boss, being promoted from electronic imaging optics GM general manager to president.
We did answer this one.
Yeah, we did it, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we were all for it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, just to recap. So this was Toshihisa is his real name, who was like the grandfather of the X series. He was the one that really, really pushed it. He was the one that believed in it. He was the one that took the project and ran with it, even during those very early days with the X100 and all of the kind of issues that came along. He built a brilliant team and managed to do it. And he got promoted, and it would have been autumn last year, to super boss rather than boss. He's now super boss. And so the question from Joey essentially is whether that will be a negative impact on the X series or whether it will be a positive thing, because obviously he's moving away from just X series to kind of optics, which includes medical stuff and all that kind of thing.
So people are worried that the X series may not be such a focus.
Yeah, and Toshi was and is a lover of photography. He's a lover of photography and David Bowie. I don't think there's any issues with that. I mean, we'll see, over the next kind of 12 months or so as as things become released again, which I'm sure will happen, as it's kind of 12-month cycles, that the investment is carrying on, and the good fairies in Tokyo are pedaling just as hard as ever.
Just before we hear from our guest, there was another thing. I know usually you look after the Facebook, but I know you're looking after the question thread. I spotted something in the FujiCast Facebook group about glass, or glass, if you come from the north. The new photo sharing app open to the public, and Eric was checking in on that one in the group. There's a bunch that have decided to kick the tires, as he says. I'm wondering what the feedback was. Well, the problem is, though, for you, Kev, I don't know, you've heard of Glass, I'm sure.
No.
Oh, right. Well, it's the new photo sharing app because of all the fuss at the moment about Instagram. There's one called Glass, but you have to be invited. It's iPhone only, not iOS only, but iPhone only. So if you want to view photos on a large screen, you're out of luck for the moment. Elegant, minimalistic, perhaps to a fault. Basic features like deleting a photo or comment are not very discoverable. No ads though, no influencers. I don't know if that's a policy. No influencers. No tickety-tock videos. No rubbish. Hallelujah. But what do you think? A new photo sharing app, Kev? That's got to be a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I still don't understand when people say all of the dramas with Instagram. Personally, Instagram hasn't changed for me in forever.
Well, you've never had the ads. That's somehow Mullins sort of escaped the bullet of ads.
I never have an ad.
I know.
Ever.
I know, you must be the lack of algorithm, they say, is wonderful, gives all images equal weight in terms of showing up on your timeline. That's okay at the moment because there's not so many people using it. You wait until there's the trillions of users like Instagram has.
Yeah, I think we've seen things come and go that have been, that to me that sounds like Flickr, but on an iPhone. We've seen things come and go. Maybe it will stay, maybe it won't. I don't know. But I'm struggling to figure out where the people who make this app are making their money.
Well, I'll tell you. $50 annual price is how they're making their money.
There you go then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no one's going to use that then.
Do you think?
No.
That'll be a big no.
Yeah. Why would you? I mean, yes, some people will, but most people won't.
I have had an invite, but I haven't actually clicked on.
If it was
$4.99
or something a year, then that's slightly different. I think $50 is. I mean, honestly, I will pay for things I think are worth it. I will, unless you can see kind of stats and things like that on there. I struggle to see myself. And bearing in mind, I haven't used it, so I'm literally basing this entire presumptions on what you just told me. I'm struggling to see how that would work. But I'm glad. I will happily be wrong. It's always good to get new things in the marketplace for sure. But the Instagram stuff, a lot of the stuff on Instagram is vanity driven, and if people can't see how many people are squealing over their pictures, I think that might also be a challenge for photo sharing apps.
That's an interesting one, because I've noticed a lot of and quite well established photographers that had reasonably good followings, and some that are well established photographers that have not very good followings at all. They've all turned off the showing how many people like. You can have, and others like. The language has changed, hasn't it?
What, on Glass?
On Instagram. No, on Instagram.
Well, I don't think you can. I don't think there's an option for you to switch it off yourself.
Oh.
They're rolling that out. Instagram are rolling that out. The like counts and stuff. Or taking them off, switching them off.
So
which is a good thing as well.
So some people have got it and others haven't.
I think so. Yeah, I think it. Again, I might be wrong on that, but certainly it started in Canada.
Yeah.
And then they rolled it out in, I think, part of the Anzac area, I still have it on mine, but more than happy for it to go away, the likes thing. But you do still, I think it's important to still be able to see, like as the creator of the picture, how many people look at the picture and where they go and the stats on it. But I don't think it's relevant for other people to see the fact that picture has had 1,000 likes or 100 likes or whatever, because it's a negative thing rather than a positive thing. Because for most people, they will look at it and think, oh, I wish I could get those likes. That's where it's tricky, I think, for me. So but yeah, I think that's a general being rolled out thing.
Well, I'm looking at Sean Tucker's one, and that just says liked by, there's one name there, and others. There's no number anymore.
Maybe there is an option for it. I don't know, but I know that was something they were rolling out, and
interesting.
Yeah, it happens.
Right. Palle Schultz. You know Palle, of course, because you've been on. Have you been on stage with him at the same time? Been at gigs with him?
Yeah, we've travelled together places, and he created with Mindy Tan. He created that wonderful X Pro 3 documentary for Fujifilm. So he spent quite a long time in Malmesbury filming. Came to a wedding with me and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. He's Superman.
He is.
He's like 150 years old, but looks about 12.
I don't know what they put in the water where he lives.
He's a kung fu expert.
I know.
He can play the guitar like Barry Manilow. Does he play guitar, Barry Manilow? No, he's a piano, isn't he? Like someone else.
He's a multi-talented chap, and we're revisiting the chat we had with him. We had with him quite some time ago as part of our summer series of saying hello to our friends again. Palle, I was speaking to Kevin earlier today about us talking, and I know you spent a bit of time together, so I asked him, I said, Kev, I'm talking to Palle later, and I have to say, for such a multi-talented chap, a photographer, a filmmaker, a musician, a martial artist, I said to Kev that you seem to play your cards pretty close to your chest. So I asked him for a little background, and Kev said to me, this is all he said to me, he said, oh, you don't need that, you can figure it all out. Just ask him why he only looks like he's 25 when he's much older than us.
Wow, man! Wow. Okay. Holy shit! That's amazing.
That's the worst way I've probably ever started an interview. Because you're actually not that much older than me at all. But you do still look like you're only 25.
I'm not sure about that.
So it's either a really good skin regime or there's something in Danish water that you lot are not telling us about.
I think when I was 25, I looked like a 12-year-old, so I'm just a little bit behind.
Well, it's lovely to talk to you. I've been talking a bit of late with photographers about the imagery, or the single picture in most cases, that shaped their view of photography. And with you, I'm not so sure it's a still image, but I think it's going to be a film, because I read the piece about Stanley Kubrick that you watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, and that's what started it for you. And I wondered what it was. It's a film I love. It's a special event film for me. I can't watch it too many times because it would spoil it. But what is it about that film?
It's so slow, and thanks for having me, by the way. The Stanley Kubrick Space Odyssey, I saw that one when I was 9 years old. Yeah. I was pretty much a loner when I was a kid, so I went to the cinema by myself because none of my friends had any interest in a film like that. But I was just blown away. And it's a very long movie, and I was there on my own in our very small town's small theater. So I was just completely blown away by this imagery. And since I was 4, I saw the moon landings when I was 4 years old, and I remember it as if it was yesterday.
Really, still?
Yeah. I saw it live. My parents allowed me to sit up at night and watch the whole thing. When I saw this movie, it was just like a bit of the same thing, but taken to the future and just seeing it in an incredible resolution and this extremely weird story that ends up in this quantum sort of universe it just blew my mind. And the imagery especially, because Kubrick has always been a favorite of mine, because he has this he has a very particular way of using lenses and widescreen stuff. Everything is just like still within his frames, and then stuff moves around as if it was a theatre.
He was, of course, an extraordinary powerhouse in cinema. And then you've got films like The Shining.
Yeah, The Shining, yeah.
Because he's an inventive man, obviously. And I'm sure it was The Shining where Steadicam comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think the way that you move a camera, other people obviously saw this thing and wanted to duplicate it and replicate it. So he was originally a photographer, a stills photographer, and you can definitely see it in the way he chooses to frame his settings. He has a great sense of aesthetic, I think.
We stayed in a hotel, actually, myself and Kev, funnily enough, in Switzerland just before Corona, and it was I likened the corridors within the hotel, which was on a beautiful lake, very much to the Shining. And I said, all it's going to take is 2 children to walk along here holding hands, and I'm jumping into bed with you tonight, Kevin. And but that was where he created, because he couldn't use a dolly, could he? He couldn't use a track, rather. That's where the bed spring idea came to the fore with the original.
I think it was in the maze where you follow him through the maze. That's the problem, because you couldn't leave tracks. And you couldn't lay out tracks, because then you would see it in the snow. Yeah. So they had to make some sort of gizmo that could bypass that necessity. Yeah. Inside the hotel, of course, it's different. Then you can just use wheels. Well, I'm not sure how if he used Steadicam for the whole thing. I don't know.
We could end up talking about Stanley Kubrick for quite a while, so we probably should move on. But do you think films like this? I'm sure they must have inspired your own videos on, say, YouTube, where again, it's a quiet approach, and you're much more considered than pretty much everybody else I can think of on the platform, bar maybe a few. Is it the inspirations like 2001 in mind?
I'm not sure. I think it's a combination of mindset and also that I like the very visionary, slow movies that takes time to sort of get it in, get the visuals in. Yeah. Blade Runner is one of my favorites, 1984, and also the new one I like because they sort of leaped out from the same place. And I just like to, there's enough that's too fast. I mean, cutting is so fast today, and it's when you see some action movies, just everything is so fast. I'm not sure we need fast all the time. So I sort of like just, dwell, and I don't know, it might be because I'm old, but I just like to sort of have the time to see what's going on in the frame. So I guess that's my inspiration.
I think it's a pace that just it's wonderful to watch. We'll get back to your filming soon, but I want to know where photographically it all started for you. How you knew you were destined to make photography your career.
I don't know if I ever knew. It's more my whole life has been a long series of coincidences, and I had 2 interests when I was young. I started taking pictures when I was 7 years old with a box camera. It was an Agfa Box 5, I think it's called, with a 120 film.
All right.
And my father was an avid, he took a lot of pictures of the family. And that was sort of a thing in my family. People really remembered to take pictures. So pictures was a natural. So we were given an old box camera that was like 20 years old when I got it in my hands. So I just used it, and then I used whatever fell in my hands and learned to develop film, and so at school, and it was just a natural thing I used for other purposes. It was not like photography itself. It was just taking pictures for other purposes, for reports and stuff in school as well. And then I had an interest in music, a keen interest in music, and I went more along the way of music for many years. And then because a lot of people couldn't, when I did some stuff where we needed pictures, I was the only one who could figure out how to use a camera because I'd done it always. So I just, okay, let me do it then. And it sort of developed from there. But I think it's about 20 years ago when I went on to the bandwagon of actually taking it a bit more seriously. Yeah. And then that's when we started with digital cameras, and I had no problem figuring those out because I knew that it was lighting more than anything else. Mm. So doing all the product photography for where I worked and so was not a problem for me. So I just did it because I was the only one who could figure it out for some reason.
You've always been a very multifaceted photographer. You've you've not necessarily specialised in one area.
It's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
I just thought I had no aim at all, or just all over the place and completely confused.
No, I'm going to say eclectic.
Okay, I'll buy that. Yeah, there's some people who are very, very good at sticking to a certain style, but I've done so very different tasks that needed a certain look for the task itself, that I never really got into creating my own look. I think my color grading maybe give me some sort of a look, but I do so many different things. What I enjoy the most is portrait photography, taking pictures of people, getting really close to them. Mm. And then the rest is more like, it sort of happens. But the portrait photography is what drives me the most.
Actually, your latest project is the Strength and Integrity project.
I'm still trying to get that on the roll because it needs to be printed and put in a book. Yeah. So that's what I need to do. But I have so much work that I'm sort of pushing it, but I need to finish that at some point. Mm.
You talk in your bio about how even banal pictures fascinate you, and of course we're emerging from this lockdown in most countries. I'm not quite sure, how stringent have you been in Denmark?
I don't think it's as bad as US and England. Okay. We could always go out and we could more or less visit friends, but people here were really careful anyway. Yeah. So it didn't spread much. We have very few incidents of corona. It's like ridiculously little. Mm. So now we are gradually opening up again. But of course, it gave us a break to breathe. And I think that was actually pretty healthy, that we got out of the busy routines and sort of put the pace down to where I am.
It suited you very well. The banality that you talk about, though, the taps tripping, the clocks ticking, those kind of what I would now loosely labelling sort of lockdown pictures. What did you find yourself doing and photographing in that time?
For me, it was emotion mostly, because you can become overwhelmed with loneliness if you don't have a family. And I live by myself. And my son lives in another part of the country, so I was pretty much left on my own. And I have always been driven by emotion, so I sort of connect to what I feel that's the first thing, and then I pick up the camera and I adjust it to whatever mood I'm in, and that can be sometimes color, and sometimes really dark black and white if I'm really moody. And I sort of just try to. You could take the most banal picture in the world and it was still ooze of whatever emotion you had when you took it. So that's interesting. I think if I were to look through your portfolio, I'd be able to tell your mood and where your mind is by the color grading and the darkness. Then yeah, that's pretty much the truth.
You're very into the formative stages of people's careers. I mean, you mentioned that you photograph dancers and artists and fighters even, but those who require a photographic record and don't, say, have the budget for it, That's the kind of person you're drawn to. What inspires you to give your time and expertise to those people?
I come from the same place. I never have had a lot of money. So when I meet people who have talent but are struggling because of money, I don't think that should be a thing that should hold them back. So I just step in and say, you know what, I can help you with this part of what you're doing. And then I just do it. And I just take the time to do it. And fortunately, most people I've been taking pictures of have a career now. And the benefit is that later in life, they actually call me again and then actually have a budget. So it's not just throwing your time out the window. It benefits other people's ambitions and their dream, and sometimes it pays back. You know, the karma carousel hits you in the back of the head, and you actually get something to do. So I kind of enjoy, you know, I can't remember the term. I think it's sharing it forwards or giving it forwards.
Pay. Is it pay?
Pay it forwards. Yeah, that's true. Pay it forwards, because I think the more you do it, I mean, you shouldn't. I don't do it for people who have money. No. If people have a lot of money, I take my price. But if it's people that just can't do it, then I'll do it for free. And tomorrow I'm helping a young dancer that have nothing. And she needs video for her project to be able to get a job. So I'm helping her to get a job.
This attention to detail you have as well, changing direction now, which I think your martial arts, because I know you're a martial artist, and you've mentioned the music. It's an attention and I think those two facets really help people when it comes to attention to detail, because I think you have to be a martial artist and a musician. But this attention to detail has played into the way you make your films. And I wanted to talk about your YouTube films. But most men, sorry to use a real generalization now, Palle, but most men throw the manuals away, but you don't. What is it about the detail? I mean, you even call your YouTube videos geeky stuff.
Yeah. It's because that's how my brain works. I'm not made from, I'm not built like regular people. I have my brain works in a different way than most people do. I have a crazy memory. I can remember when I was a baby. I can remember since I was a couple of months old, and I can remember it more or less linearly. And it's kind of a weird thing in a big subject. It's sort of like an Asperger's brain that sucks in a lot of information, and it also it's like I can't really I can't not have attention to detail.
The Palle way of working to camera, this sort of very gentle one. If you haven't seen one of Palle's films, you have to. We'll put links in, obviously, in the show notes, because you have this beautiful way of connecting with a camera. I feel safe when I'm in one of your films. I don't feel that, even though I've seen the words geeky stuff, that I'm not going to be able to understand what you're about to say. How did you come about that style of filmmaking? Because it's so different to every other tutorial kind of video on YouTube, that's for sure.
I think it's because I have been teaching a lot since I was very young, because I acquired information very quickly and ended up teaching very quickly in everything I did. I did it in martial arts. I've done it in music, and I haven't been taught much. Music, I taught at 2 conservatories in Denmark, but I never had 1 hour of lessons myself. So it's just, I think I understand that most people they don't connect well with a high amount of information, especially not things they can't relate to. So I thought it was much better to take the approach of showing how you apply certain routines. So when you use your camera, or you use your gadget or tool, then I'm just taking the approaches, because so many people sit down and say, okay, these 10 things are bad, these 10 things are good. It can do this and that, and this is the specs. And why should I do it? Because they do it. So I should do something different. So I just try to sort of get around how you could apply the use of this camera or whatever tool I'm showing in a specific setting, and most often people can relate to it pretty easily.
I'm interested as to why you chose Fujifilm, although I think it has something to do with the way you're treated with big cameras at music festivals.
Yeah, I had a Canon before, and I never really connected to the camera. I have never seen so deep levels of menus in a camera. Even I had a problem getting around the whole thing. And then the X100 came in 2011. And I was sick and tired of being pushed into the photo pit with other photographers had these vests on that glows in the light or glows in the dark. And I hated being that one that had to be pushed in front of the stage in 3 songs and then out. So I chose to go to a big festival when I got the X100 and had a job taking pictures there, but I just went with the X100 and 1 battery. So I had to turn everything off. I only used the optical viewfinder. And then I started taking pictures from the pit. But then some of the musicians noticed me being totally different than the rest of the photographers. And then I was pointed at and asked to come up on stage. So I went up on stage. And from then on, I just went backstage and took a lot of backstage pictures. And then when I noticed what came out of that camera, because I only shot JPEG, I was just totally blown away by the colors and the quality of this little camera. And people posed for me because this little camera didn't scare anyone. It sort of pulled them towards me instead of pushing them away. But whenever they saw one of the Canon photographers with their big lenses, they just turned their back. So I had an advantage because I didn't seem like a photographer.
Well, I'm curious then about your camera bag. I know you love the new X Pro incarnation in the 3. I watched the film in that. I know one of the things you particularly like
is crazy about that camera.
Your nose doesn't mess up the screen anymore at the back. I thought that was
exactly. That was one thing. I just thought it was funny because I'm left-eyed, so I always smear the display with my nose, and then suddenly I didn't. So I was like, hey,
it's exactly the same
great.
as me. Yeah, absolutely. If I go to the back of your room now behind you and unzip your kit bag, what am I going to find in there?
You will find an empty bag because I pack it every time for what I'm doing because I'm as diverse when I do jobs as you have noticed in anything. It can be a couple of days ago, I went for doing a couple of interviews with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practice, 2 coaches for a new club, and did some filmed some practice routines and some interviews, and also took some pictures. So I brought the X-T4, a 35mm for the portraits, and I brought a 1655 lens with an ND filter for the video. And the new X-T4 is, you can just switch the knob and then you're good to go in anything. I set that up before I went, so I had the settings and just had a little rig around it. And I could put it in the small Fujifilm Domke bag.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
It all fitted in there. And then I had a bigger Manfrotto bag with a light stand. I brought a Pro Photo B1, but I found out that I shouldn't because it has a fan inside, so it makes noise when it starts to get warm. So lights with fans in them are not good for video. I figured out.
No, not at all. Coming back to the filming then, and I'm talking about your Talking Heads pieces again, which, as I said, are wonderfully simple. What is the Schultz setup? I mean, your skin tones are warm. It's beautifully lit. Is it 4K or what is your? I've often said to Kev, I wonder what.
Try to improve it a little bit.
Right.
All the time. I'm just, taking a step up every time I do it to sort of have some sort of development in the look. But I use 2 LED lights called Falcon Eyes, a small one and a big one just for my face. And then I basically just go back in the room and turn on the regular indoor lights because they are very warm in comparison to daylight LED. And the last video that hasn't come out yet, I, for the first time, used a blue LED light to light up part of the background to have separation. And that looked really good.
Well, it's nice to see you back on YouTube because I know for a while you had other projects that took you away. So we'll make sure we We pop up some links for your channel, your work and your projects, and of course your Instagram account, which is where you keep folks up to date with what you're doing, which is at Palle Schultz, And actually, on that note, and to bring things full circle, do you think Stanley Kubrick, with all his creativity, would have had an Instagram account?
I think he would have had a manager take care of it, but I think he would have.
Do you think so?
He would have people to do it for him. I think he had such a strong vision of what he was doing and was so focused on what he was doing that I don't think he would have much time, but I think he would appreciate the medium. I'm pretty sure of it.
With his inventiveness, I bet he'd have done something different.
Probably, but I don't think he would put much of his mind into it because film was his thing.
Yeah.
And he would probably just continue making amazing movies because all his movies, for me, is an artwork in itself. I mean, even The Shining have taken a pounding from some critics, but still to this day, I think it's, as a horror movie, is one that really has, it's very special, and the way it scares people was a new way to scare people. So he definitely had a vision for what he wanted.
I tried to talk Kev into it. I said, Kev, you got this wonderful new projector for your house. I gave him, because The Shining was on the list. He said, I'm not watching The Shining. But I tell you what, though, The Shining, Clockwork Orange, and 2001. If I had, on one hand, if I thought what I call the late night Friday with a tipple of something slightly stronger than a cup of tea, then I think those three films would be on there. I'm not sure what the other two would be, but those three probably, definitely The Shining, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think Full Metal Jacket for me is one of the
of course,
most iconic.
Yes.
Because the acting in that film is just spectacular.
Well, our thanks to Palle Schultz for his time. Would love to have him back on the show sometime soon to talk more about his grading, since I think his pictures, his stills now that is, because as you heard, he loves portrait work. His stills, his grading in his stills is quite something else. Plus, really, there are so many other projects we should discuss. Back to your questions in a moment. Over on my other little podcast this week, the Photography Daily flavoured one, there is, of course, the new Friday Photo Walk show, which this week features the start of our new 365 series. We are unashamedly starting just over halfway through a year, but who cares? But also it's a bonus week this week, bonus episode week, because on Wednesday we have an interview-only show featuring Nikki Heppenstall, co-founder of Remember My Baby, a registered charity created to provide portraiture to bereaved parents in hospitals on a voluntary basis, free of charge. It's a moving story, but equally an appeal to you as a photographer to see how you may feel about making pictures that are precious to parents in their hour of real need. It's quite an emotional one at times, but also it's a very positive photographic chat about just how much our skills can help others. That's on Wednesday. Photography Daily is on all your favourite podcast apps. Right, back to the questions. Kev, you're going first.
Okay, so this next one is from Mia Masters, and she says, I was intrigued by your mention of the very expensive but dashing leather dual camera strap. Recently, I have spent some time watching reviews and concluded that is the best thing since sliced bread. You clearly had different views on it. Is this from experience? Can you elaborate on this further? Cheers.
I don't remember us being that damning about that camera strap.
Well, I think you'll find really what she should have said is, recently I've spent some time watching reviews and concluded that is the best thing since sliced bread. Right. Neil clearly had a different view on it.
Did I? What?
Yeah, you were going on about how it's bad for your back and all that kind of your hips and things like that, I think.
Sorry, yes, no, I apologise. I was thinking about an entirely different kind of camera strap.
But I also chimed in and said that it's not a favourite of mine. But yeah, I mean, Mia's right. Lots of people do use them. I just personally, if you're thinking of it as a fashion accessory, then it's the wrong approach. If it works for you for the ergonomics of shooting, absolutely go for it. Yeah. I tried one once and I found it very, very difficult to use. So, but I didn't give it much time. I only gave it one job. So yeah, I mean, lots of people do use them. They are expensive, but I presume that they last a long time and everything like that. Have you actually ever used them?
I did, yeah. I've used it a couple of times. I just didn't get on with it. And my observations of it were based on watching other people using them, and the albeit short experience time that I've had with them, that you just walk in a weird way because you're stopping these things flapping around.
Maybe we had them. Maybe we didn't have them
primed correctly. But I've watched other people use them, and it's almost. Have you ever heard of the Steadicam walk?
Yeah, it's like that. That's what I was thinking. It's like a cowboy walk. You have to have your arms down a little bit further away from you. It does look like you're about to draw a gun.
Yeah, but so you walk along. You're trying sort of not to be too bouncy in your walk. So you've got this kind of like, they call it the Steadicam walk, don't they? Because when you're any sort of gimbal or Steadicam or gimbal, the idea is this idea with a gimbal, for example, that you can just go marching forward with abandon is nonsense, because you do have to temper the movement that your natural spring will take you into, sort of flatten that spring a bit, and that's what I see when people are using those crossover camera straps, where it's screwed into the bottom screw thread in the camera itself, and not the eyelets on the side. Is that people walk in this kind of Steadicam fashion, that sort of tempered bounce.
Yeah, the Steadicam walk always makes me think of llamas. They look like llamas when they're kind of prancing forwards. But those crossover camera straps. I mean, let's face it. Both you and I have used them maybe once, so we're probably not the best people to give a proper appraisal of. But they're not for me. But lots of people do use them, and if they are working for them, then so be it.
Here's one from Adrian Japp, and I know that to be true because he said not with a silent J. Because as we all know, Kev, silent letters are
a waste of space and kill trees.
Hi, gents. Still very much enjoying the podcast. You're both doing a great job. Well, thank you. I have a question about Lightroom and your use of previews. Of course, there's an option of generating standard previews and smart previews. Smart previews in brackets obviously really useful if you want to take your library on the go without the originals. Smart previews obviously take less disk space, and standard previews, conversely, a lot more disk space. So far, so good. But with an option of deleting them after a set period of time, clearly to save said disk space. With a large library, using my Lightroom database and previews on an internal fast SSD, it's chomping up storage. And I'm just looking at rationalizing space. With over 140,000 images, film and digital, you can see how much space can be eaten with previews. You certainly can. My originals aren't an issue as they're stored, backed up locally and online. So how do you use your Lightroom previews for maximum efficiency whilst working and to balance storage, Kev?
So what I do is I always build one-to-one previews when I'm working. And then when I finish the job and I'm archiving it all off, I just delete the preview folder. Just delete it.
Yeah.
I don't rely on the automatic deletion in Lightroom because if you need to load Lightroom up for it to delete it and all that kind of stuff. So I just delete them. Just delete the folders. And also, even if you delete them and then you think, oh, I've got to go in and do some more work, it just rebuilds them. So they are perfectly transient files. They can be deleted and removed and whatever. You do not need to back those up. It's the whole point of an archive is that you're going to call it back in a couple of years' time if you need to. So you do not need to be storing all those temporary preview files. Just delete them.
I'm trying to find this question that would have been a perfect backup to this. Or perfect second part. There was a question. Oh, where's it gone? There was a question about. I'll ask it and I'll find your name later. About when you're building further images into a Lightroom catalogue, that the catalogue will see the new images, but it doesn't see the old images. Am I making sense there? If you've got a constant a constant catalogue on say you've got holiday pictures, Kev. And you just collect up your holiday pictures through the year because you're lucky enough to go on 3 or 4 holidays a year. Obviously local these days with lockdowns. But Staycations, yeah. If you're continually coming back and adding pictures into a library, how do you manage to see all the images that were before it as well? Because it sort of just builds the new library.
I mean, that's catalog management, that is. So, most people, if you've got a personal library, I have a personal library of all my kind of personal stuff that goes back to 2005, actually before that, because I managed to get loads of old phone photos and stuff.
Wow.
So I just have it organized by year. So, obviously 2021. And then, for example, Brighton, we went to Brighton for a week, and that will be in 08.August. And then under there will be another folder that just says Brighton, and all the pictures go in there.
Spanish folder was a bit empty this year then.
Spain folder, I didn't even bother adding that this year, or last year.
Oh, dear Kev. You'll be out there again soon. Right, shall we go for our book of the week? Oh, this would be nice, wouldn't it? We're off to Brazil. That would be lovely.
Yeah, so this is a really nice book, actually, and I'll read out the blurb because it makes it a lot easier. So Sandra Catano, this is a hymn to Rio de Janeiro's glowing light printed in luminous golden ink, and it says, printed in gold metallic 4-color, Águas de Ouro, I probably got the name of the beach wrong, celebrates the golden light of Rio de Janeiro through images that combine moments of street photography with abstract lyrical compositions. It's the second book from photographer Sandra Catano, Odorno, who started photographing 6 years ago at the age of 60. After The Other Half of the Sky, which is the other book, which portrayed women in the streets of several countries, she dedicates this last monograph to the beauty of Brazilian streets, beaches, and people. And then it goes on to say that these beguiling moments or images not only capture people and moments with visual maturity and acuity, but also evoke something quintessential about the city, something a little darker, the bittersweet yearning that Brazilians call saudade, which hints at other levels of reality. Yeah, and it is a really beautiful book. It's a nice kind of medium-sized hardback, but that gold metallic 4-color printing really, really stands out.
It's unusual.
It's it's one of those books that are just different. It's different. These pictures in this book are some of them are very, very abstract. To the point where you sometimes you're twisting the page to try and get the perspective right, and then it suddenly hits you and you think, wow, yeah, that's really, really clever. A lot of silhouette work going on. A lot of the stuff is on the beach. A lot of kind of slow shutter stuff as well, and potentially even dual images. I'm not 100% sure whether they're just slow shutter or dual images, but it's beautiful, and you really do get this idea of being on the beach and being in Brazil, and you see an element of poverty, but not in a grotesque way. But mostly you get an element of people just enjoying their environment and what's on their doorsteps. I love, there's some beautiful images, full page spreads of people in dusk, probably, where the light is shimmering on the beach, the water, the waves are coming in. You have all of these shapes, these people splashing away in the sea, and then in the background you have all of the massive kind of buildings that are crammed right up to the beachfront. And it's a really, really beautiful book. The only thing I would say again is there are some images that probably are unavoidably split right across the page, and some of the key parts of the elements are then kind of hidden in the spine, if you like. But with time, when you're looking through the book, that will kind of flatten itself out. But they're really, really kind of they're intimate without giving away any of the subjects' personalities or any of the subjects' identities. They're, like I say, there's a certain time of the day that she's chosen to shoot for that purposefully. She's getting really quite close to some of the people and making these beautiful kind of large frame fill-in silhouette images of people splashing through the sea, and then you have single kind of images then, or more subtle images. People standing on the dunes, and you can see in this particular one image I'm looking at, there's a girl stood on the dunes. She's walking, I think. You can see the flora and the kind of flowers and everything popping up, and behind it again is the night of the city behind it, if you like, glistening. Yeah, really, really beautifully printed. It's one of those books that again you kind of want to pick up and smell. It's got a tangible
smell.
It's just really lovely. And I have to say that when I first kind of looked at this book, I thought, oh, hang on, this is, the printing doesn't look quite right. But then you obviously understand and read about the reason behind this and the way that she shot this purposely in this style, and it really grows on you. And yeah, I think it's one of those books that it's something that you're not necessarily going to take this out just before you go street shooting as inspiration. But this is more, I would class this more in the fine art category of my bookshelf.
Right.
You kind of pull it out and just admire the images, really. And there's a real sense of wanting to know. We talk a lot on the show about hiding the identities of people in street photography and the rights and the wrongs of that, and the local restrictions and various things like that. But there's a sense of wanting to know a little bit more about the people, especially the kind of frame filling silhouettes of the kids splashing away in the shallows of the water. But actually, that's the beauty of it as well. There's the fact that you're left thinking, I wonder what that little boy did next. I wonder whether he's got a nice home to go to, or whether he has to go and live in a cardboard box. That leaves you asking questions, and if you're asking questions, that's a good thing. So yeah, overall, a really, really beautiful book. Very incredibly well printed. Incredibly well printed. It's one of the ones that you want to look after it if you get this. It's only just being released now, and I think it's going to be around about $50. So it's not a expensive book, but certainly one that I would class as one that I would want to look after. I'm not treat like my cameras.
I'm certainly intrigued by her, because she's been a success slightly later in life with her photography. I love stories like that.
Yeah, indeed. She is wonderful. I mean, 60 years old, just, which is only 6. So she's 66 now. Yep. 60 years old, picks up a camera and off she goes. And it's not like she's just, picked up a camera and loads of people have told her the pictures are good. The pictures are amazing. Yeah. This is, some people have talent that is just unrealized, and she has that. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Right. We'll leave the link, of course, in the show notes, so that you can order for yourself. Back to questions. Reese Robinson. Kevin, Neil, great job with the show. I stumbled into your podcast last month because of something you were discussing in episode 189. What were we discussing in episode 189, Kev?
I don't even know what episode we're on now.
Since
nearly 200 now.
Nearly. It's 196 now? Oh, we're getting so close, Kev. Since then, I've listened to all the new stuff and started working my way back, having just listened to 182. Having listened to 10 podcasts in less than a month, I figured I needed to become a patron. Reese, that's very kind of you. I came for the Fuji stuff, stayed around for all the other nonsense. I've also noticed that way too much of my entertainment is coming from the British Isles, but rest assured, you are my midsummer murders of the podcast world. Not sure which of you's DCI Barnaby and which one's DS Troy. I don't watch it as much as you. Troy was played by Nettles, wasn't he? Or was Barnaby?
No, Barnaby was played by the Saint.
Yes,
Nettles.
I want to be Nettles.
I think you'd be better at him. Yeah, and Troy, the original Troy was a young, good-looking, suave Welsh lad. So that'll be me.
That's you. Yeah. In any case, he says, I have two questions. One, now that Fuji has opened up the X mount to third-party lens manufacturers, are there any lenses you would particularly like to see developed for the system, and why? I personally pre-ordered the Cassina Voigtlander Nocturne 35mm 1.2. They can't fit that whole trade name around a lens, certainly. I don't know what focal length would you be keen?
Well, it's not so much for me, because I feel like I've got everything covered. I just yesterday, in fact, ordered the 18mm 1.4. I've been waiting for it to come back into stock. Yeah. But not so much for me. I would say more for other people, and that would be a set of tilt shift lenses.
Yes.
I think that's the missing link. Especially for the GFX range. Get architectural photographers on those sensors with some really, really cool tilt shift technology. You're going to see a lot of architectural photographers and interior photographers using that. I think that's the thing that's missing right now.
It's interesting how many photographers are still not necessarily aware of the GFX. I was talking to one the other day. Photographer will remain nameless for the moment. Reasonably well heeled. He was saying, I'm really keen on looking at medium format stuff, and I mentioned the GFX, and he said, don't know anything about that. What's GFX? And I thought, it's intriguing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the same problem that the original X series had, wasn't it? When Fujifilm brought out the X series, people were like, well, it's not Nikon or Canon, is it? So it can't be any good. And, it took them a while to kind of get over that hurdle. I know for a fact the GFX especially the 100S, and the 50 are flying off the shelves. I mean, they're doing really, really well with those, because they're huge sensors and they're relatively cheap, for the technology compared to other medium format systems out there. And of course, we probably will get the email saying it's not technically medium format, and it's not. They're right. Let's just call it a large sensor system.
Large sensor, yeah.
It'd be a no-brainer for me if I was. I have the original GFX 100, which was very, very expensive for me. But if your medium format shooter is used to spending 30, 40 grand on systems, then it would be insane not to look at it. Whether you invest in it or not is a different question, but insane not to look at it.
So tilt shift on the end of that.
Yeah, tilt shift on the end of a GFX 100 or 100 megapixel sensor. Whew, imagine all those interiors and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know why Fujifilm haven't done that for a start, and B, that's if I was a third-party lens manufacturer, that's what I'd be aiming at, I think.
Quick, somebody put that in the Ask Andreas question thread. Second question, which is nothing to do with photography. Based on episode 190, I was able to track down some Brewdog Hazy Jane in my area. Nice little beer. Being from Delaware and the home of the world-renowned Dogfish Head Brewery, I was wondering, are there any American craft ales that you've taken a fancy to? Well, this question is certainly one that I'll bat to Kev, because you're the craft ale man.
Well, no, funny enough, that Dogfish, I've had some of that because my auntie and my uncle, well, before he passed away, lived in Delaware. They lived in Boozewin, I think.
Boozewin?
Boozewin.
Which
it might actually just be over the border in Pennsylvania, but we always kind of travelled into Delaware for our meals and stuff. Very nice. Yeah, I like Goose IPA. I like that.
You travelled across county borders or state borders to have a meal. What?
Yeah, because they lived right on the Pennsylvania Delaware border. One side of the street was in Delaware, the other side was in Pennsylvania.
Oh, literally that close.
So the name of the town was called Boozewin. I'm just going to have a quick look now to see, because that's Boozewin.
It's brought back some memories for you, Kev.
Delaware. Yeah.
I thought for a minute you were going to say we went to cross the street so we avoided the prohibition.
Okay, so actually it says here, Boozewin is a census-designated place in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Yeah, maybe not the state, but there you go. Anyway, it was very close. We did go there. So, Goose IPA, though. I remember one of my trips to New York, when you're there doing workshops or whatever, and you're by yourself in the evenings, and you just go and find a bar, and it always freaks me out that I did what they always did in Cheers. I just put $1 down every drink I had, which would be their tip, and then they just keep giving you drinks, and then at the end you pay for it and you give them the tip. And I remember having Goose IPA over there, and you could get it over here. It's quite a popular drink, and it's one of those ones that I had maybe 2 or 3. And all my neck went red.
What?
And my face got hot. So there's it's probably some fruit or something in there, because sometimes if I have certain apples and things like that, my head goes bright red.
Does it? Oh, weird. I've never seen that, Kev.
Yeah, because I avoid those apples.
Obviously. Right. Thank you, Reese, for that. Your question, Kev, from the Facebook group.
Okay, so this is from Hubert Cole. He says, flash off camera at event/weddings. Carry a light stand, use bracket on camera, hold in one hand. If yes, how to balance and keep the camera steady. I'm assuming using a wireless trigger in all methods, some type of modifier. Personally, have used on camera with a small modifier type strap on and a flip bounce card, which seems to work if I get close enough. Your thoughts, suggestions? For what it's worth, my Fujifilm cameras are X100F, X-T2, X-T3, and a Godox 350/685.
Well, if I use flash, then it's always the flash gun is always in my left hand, and the camera's in my right hand. I've never really done a lot of stuff. I know the Godox systems are very good for being able to trigger remote flash, but I've never really worked that way.
Yeah, I mean, just reading that question brought me out in kind of shivers.
Have you got a red face?
Carry a light stand, use a bracket on the camera, hold in one hand. How do you balance it? Do you use a wireless trigger, some type of modifier, modifier strap on flip bounce card? Yeah, all of that. And I'm not dissing people who do that, because some of the guys that do it make amazing, especially the kind of party pictures. I do kind of wish that sometimes I could kind of get into that, but I don't. I just don't. I have a little LED light that I'll hold in my left hand, same as you, and angle it if necessary. But yeah, I don't really use flash like that at all. I don't think about modifiers and flip cards and whatever they call them.
I certainly don't use modifiers, but I've started getting in quite close in terms of the party shots with a flash, left hand flash, bang, sort of slow shutters, dragging the shutter, which I know is an old is a kind of like old tried and tested method, but it works, and I quite like the reactions and the that you can get from getting in really close when people are dancing. And that for me that's a great time for using flash, because at that point nobody cares really that if you're a bit obtrusive. Invasive is entirely the wrong word, because they're dancing, they're having fun, they're drunk. That's the time
absolutely.
I use
if
it.
It's the right party and the dance floor is busy and there's enough space, then I'll definitely get in close as well. But it has to be the right kind of event. It's not always like that, is it? Sometimes it's too busy. It's just like everybody jumps on the dance floor and there's no space whatsoever.
No,
and then you're just kind of feeding off the edges. But get in close if you can, for sure.
Yeah, if you feed off the edges, you never get what's really going on in the centre. And I have to say, I mean, this is an entirely different subject now. I've been talking a bit about this on my other little podcast, but the new age that we live in, Kev. You've got these 4 in a row coming up, which by the time we talk to you on the next, or the one afterwards, that we'll know how that how your limbs are feeling. But how are you feeling with regard to COVID safety with that? Because my wedding at the weekend was 270 people. Now, 270 people were not on the dance floor. This is a couple of weekends ago, actually. But I just thought, well, COVID's in there somewhere. I just hope it's not where I'm going with my flash.
Yeah, I think honestly now I'm at the point where, I'll wear a mask as and when I feel it's appropriate. That's for sure. And I would probably still wear a mask, certainly for if I'm going in on the dance floor, that type of thing. But let's be truthful about this. Even if you're wearing a mask and you're on the dance floor, and somebody has it and they sneeze, it's going to be on your cameras. You're pressing the buttons with your fingers, all that kind of stuff. The mask isn't particularly going to be useful there, is it? No. But yeah, without kind of speaking too much about it, we're now 30 times more cases than we were this time last year in the UK, and everything's back open, so it is what it is.
Hospitalizations are staying steady.
Exactly, because the vaccines are working.
What you will hear, All right, well, that's it for another week. Thank you very, very much for your questions that you've been sending in. As Kev suggested, well, you had to draw from the pile that were 3 days old, Kev. What's going on? So we need more, always. Thank you to this week's guest, Palle Schultz. If you can share the episode on Twitter or on Facebook, you're a complete star. Let us know where you're sharing to, because we like to give those platforms a shout out too. See you in the Facebook group for any questions you have about today's show. Play nice, of course, because our moderators, Steve and Peter, they're in there, just keeping an eye on stuff. Send your questions, your stories about your work, and anything of interest you think listeners will enjoy or learn from via the website address. Click at fujicast.co.uk. There is a thought that the website, Kev, might change a little bit, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it will. At some point, we'll flip it to Squarespace, but it's quite a relatively big job, so we'll start afresh and then start working backwards. But yes, at some point.
So we'll start with sort of none of the past, but we'll gradually sort of
add it in.
Add in. Yeah.
So it will all eventually make its way across. Good. Yeah.
Music from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io, and we will see you next week. Bye, Kev.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.